Yeah.
In fact, I sent him an email saying that was brilliant. I sent the managing partner an email saying that was brilliant. And I sent an email out to my coworkers saying, look what this attorney did. It was brilliant. And I sent it to the carrier.
Welcome to The Defense Never Rests with Morgan and Akins, your monthly dose of uncommon sense about all things legal and some that are not.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of The Defense Never Rests. I am Megan Henry, and I'm joined again by my wonderful co-host, Nate Bolander. Hi, Nate.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
I'm so happy to have you back on. It's like I had you on last week and this week. It's just so much podcast time with my Nate.
Oh my word! We don't have face-to-face time anymore, so we got to make up for it in the podcast world.
It's all we get. So yeah. I say this every week. I'm so excited about today's podcast, but really, today we have on Morgan Dooley, who she is a claims adjuster at Network Adjusters. And I found Morgan on LinkedIn just because she is very vocal about what she likes and doesn't like about what counsel does. And she posts just her gripes on LinkedIn, and I just loved it. So I reached out to her and said, please come on. And, I'm giving her a platform, a video and audio platform to, give us her insight on tips to outside counsel and things that just drive her crazy.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because she's very, she does not pull punches and is not overly diplomatic when she doesn't need to be. And it's great. It's refreshing, I think. So I'm looking forward to it.
And I don't even think we have time enough. I think one podcast won't even be enough for her. So there might even be a part 2. So with that, let's bring her in. Good afternoon, Morgan. Thanks for joining us today on The Defense Never Rests. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you come on because I started noticing you on LinkedIn a few months ago because you have these awesome and blunt tips for counsel, for adjusters that make me laugh, but also are just like, what are you doing, guys? This is straighten up your act. This is what we need.
And that's what it is. And honestly, I'm shocked that anybody looks at them or notices them. Because really, pretty much they are always very in the moment, and it's literally something that a defense attorney has just done. And I just vent. I'm like, are you kidding me? Why did you do this? And please don't do this. So it's just me and my mouth venting. Same thing for some of the adjuster tips. Drives me nuts. And because I've always worked remotely, I don't have somebody in the cubicle next to me to be like, I can't believe this person just did this. So I just get on LinkedIn and I just vent. That's what it is. It's just me venting.
I think it's awesome. And then when I started reading them, I was like, I love this. And we have so many people in claims who listen to this podcast that I think when I read them, I was like, you'd be such a great guest to come on, because I feel like a lot of our listeners would really either relate to what you have to say or take value from it too. For some, maybe there's some younger adjusters who tune in or whatever it may be, take value from some of the pointers that you put out there. So
I'm hoping that there's some defense attorneys who take value from it and actually pay attention and think, maybe I should not do this going forward.
Yeah, I think there might be a few. What do you think, Nate? I think we have a few.
I think there are 2 on this podcast that you're looking at.
Perfect. My job is done.
Well, we actually aren't guilty of any of the things that I've seen.
Not a single one.
But I'll tell my friends.
Job.
Right,
but before we get into your tips and gripes and headaches, I want to talk a little bit about you though, because you've been in claims for how many years?
So forever. And literally, when people say, "Oh, I cut my teeth on a claims desk," I quite literally did that. My family owned a very successful IA firm in the Bay Area in California. They started it when I was 3 months old in their house, in my parents' master bedroom. That's where they started it. So I literally cut my teeth on a claims desk sitting at my mom's side as a toddler. I worked through high school. I was a secretary at their office. I was emptying waste baskets at 7. So this is my life. I mean, this is, my younger brother, I just got him into the industry, but I have over 30 years into adjusting. And just, hey, here's a kudos to my mother, who is my role model. She was the first licensed female adjuster to own her own IA company in the entire state of California. She was the CPCU president probably 4 years, secretary several years. She was an instructor for a number of years. My mother paved the way for me and a lot of other women in the claims industry. So, my family, I bleed claims. And after all these years, I still, and I think that's why I vent, I'm still so passionate about what I do. And it's still super important to me that, do the right thing, pay what you owe, no more and no less. Mm-hmm. And when I stop feeling those two things that I learned from my mother, I will no longer be an adjuster. But yes, the short answer is I've done this forever.
And I love that story because it's first time I've ever really heard of like a homegrown claims business. Like we've talked to a lot of people on here, like, oh, their parents were in insurance or they just had nothing, they just fell into it. But I think that's incredible, like, especially with how you described it. Like they started the business in your parents' bedroom. That's insane.
It's crazy. And they ended up owning their own office building and having probably 30 or 40 employees. But yeah, they started it off in their master bedroom.
And growing up, like, was there any doubt in your mind that this is what you were going to do? And with that, was it expected this is what you're going to do, or you just chose it?
So no, I have two brothers. Neither one of them were interested in it growing up. I worked as a secretary, like I said, through high school for them. And when I got out of high school, I went to college. That didn't go real great the first time. Came back home, went back to work with my parents. They split. My parents divorced. So they split the company. I went with my father because he needed help for some health issue reasons. And then my father retired and my mother retired shortly after that. And they both said, "Hey, do you want the business?" And I said, "Oh, absolutely not." Because and it wasn't because I didn't enjoy claims. It was because I watched them work. They worked, my mother especially worked 5 to 9. She didn't work 9 to 5. She worked 5 to 9. They worked 7 days a week. When we went on vacation, and this is going to age me, my mom would dictate her reports sitting on the beach while we played. So I watched them struggle through the early years when they were just starting out. So, they didn't have a guaranteed income. They didn't have sick pay. They didn't have vacation pay. And they had all these employees. And let's be honest, the claims industry, there's a lot of crazy people and a lot of high maintenance folks. There just are. So no, I didn't want to do that. So I went off, I think I was 22 and for 5 years or so, I guess, maybe I kind of went off the rails and I did some other things because I thought I've always done this. This has always been what I've done. And then I got back into it when I went through a divorce and I needed I was still in college. So it was my second go around and I needed a job immediately. And that's what I went to. I went back to adjusting and have done it ever since. But no, there was never the expectation. I think it gives my parents, my mother, a lot of pride and satisfaction, certainly, that I'm carrying on that tradition. I still carry her card case that she used 40 years ago. So the legacy it matters to me. And I want to carry that legacy on of do the right thing, pay what you owe, no more, no less. So
you mentioned your mom kind of being a trailblazer in claims for women in California.
Absolutely.
Did she have any war stories for you about times, where she was really kind of either persecuted against or not listened to or kind of put down because of that?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I have the same stories from when I remember, mom will tell you, it was honey, sweetie, sugar pie, countless times that guys, grabbed her butt, and just did in today's time, today we look back and think, well, that's grossly inappropriate. And I don't think 40 years ago that was it was still grossly inappropriate, but I don't think people didn't realize that, or there wasn't that expectation or that awareness. But yeah, she certainly, without question, was I don't even want to say sexually harassed, but she was certainly treated differently than her male counterparts. And because both of my parents ran and owned the company, I would see that. Mm-hmm. The different, because we would have claims presidents come in from the different carriers. They would come into the office, and I would see how they would interact with my mother versus how they would interact with my father. And then, Mom and I laugh when because when they split, I ran my dad's company for 2 years. And I went to one of the big IA organizations to their yearly seminar or yearly conference. And I think it was in Dallas. And yeah, it was the same thing. It was sweetie sugar. Oh, you're too pretty to be doing this, and had my, my derriere grabbed. Yeah, it's gotten better over the decades. But I still occasionally will run into that. So we have not rooted that out. There is still more work to do. But as a female who's been in the trenches all these years, it's gratifying to see that it has changed. And we are seeing women in, upper positions. At Network, where I work, network adjusters, we have got women all the way up at the top. And they are respected, they are listened to, they are brilliant. So yeah, it's gratifying.
Yeah. It's a topic that we keep talking about because there's still things to talk about.
There's still more. There's still more to do, obviously. And I think that's across society, right? It's not just the claims industry, but the claims industry is one of those industries that was notorious for being a good old boys industry. Mm-hmm. And to a certain degree, it still is. So yes, there's still work. And I'm guessing that, the attorney, the legal industry is probably got the same story.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Totally. So, I find it interesting that like your perspective though, to decide to not go into your parents' business because the amount that you saw them work and what they missed out on, and that you preferred actually to take almost a step back and be not the boss lady, but
right. Well, and I never looked at it as taking a step back. Certainly my parents were able to retire much earlier than I will. But my mom always says, and I'll try and do this without crying. My mom always says, and again, I'm going to age myself, that she always kind of felt the song Cat in the Cradle. Because it's a song about, a father who worked so much that his son didn't have time. He didn't have time for his son. And then that role switches. Yeah. So I feel like, they gave up. I don't ever want anybody to ever think that I didn't have a storied childhood. I did. My family was phenomenal. My parents were always there for me. We took vacations. They went to my soccer games, all of that. But my mom also always had a dictaphone with her, and she would be up at 10 o'clock at night with a stack of reports. And I just never wanted to do that. I wanted to be able to get up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when it's lovely like it is today and go out to the barn and go ride my horse.
Yeah.
My mom could not have done that. And I never wanted to be responsible for all those people. I did not want that stress of, holy moly, if we don't get so much business in, I'm not going to be able to pay Rosemary, the office secretary. I have to be able to pay her. I watched them at tax time and how stressed they were. And it's just not my personality. And frankly, I don't have the tact for it. It's why over the years when employers have said, hey, maybe you want to, we can promote you to supervisor. Oh, absolutely not. No, I don't want to be a supervisor. And I've told all my employers, and I don't want to be supervised. All I've ever wanted is a claims desk, a phone, and some claims, and leave me alone. And I'll handle my claims. So yeah, to me, and I don't think I've ever even thought about it till you said that, but it absolutely wasn't a step down or a step back. It was just, this is where my talents are. This is where my personality fits. And this is what I love. I love handling claims. I really do. And if you own the company, if you're a supervisor, you're not handling claims that much.
You're not.
So yeah.
Yeah. It's like similar to like if you're managing a law firm, you're
Yeah,
not,
I'm sure. Yeah.
you're not doing the day by day.
No, you're
handling
running
cases.
a kindergarten. I mean, really, you're and it's the same thing in claims. I think, for a lot of it, you're running a kindergarten. And I don't want to do that.
Yeah. And I think it speaks a lot to like knowing what you're good at and what you want to do and be like, no,
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good here. And I'm happy.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
It's always not always the eternal chase of money. We always talk about that, the confluence between, making more money and working more hours versus taking time to yourself. And if you choose the former of that every single time you have the chance, it's not going to be good over the long term.
Yeah. And I make really good money. I make enough money to be able to do what I want, to take care of my family. I laugh every day at work, at least once. And I enjoy what I do. So yeah, I mean, I've never been interested in chasing the dollar. I'm just interested in chasing the quality of life. And I feel like the job that I have lets me have that, as corny as that sounds.
no, I don't think that's corny at all. I think it's great. And, I think there's a lot to be said about like being happy where you are and realizing like this, I don't need more from that pot over there. Like my pot is full and I'm good. I don't need more cake. Let's throw in every little phrase.
Well, no, come on. Let's be real. I always need more cake. Always.
So, and we had talked about this, I think, prior to the podcast starting, and you and I talked about on the phone though. I mean, you've been working from home for long before the rest of us all were working from home.
Yeah.
But, I think when I worked from home more frequently than most before the pandemic, but so I didn't experience this, but did you ever experience like the like loss of connection with any colleagues or having that like work camaraderie because you were remote, well before the pandemic started?
Oh yeah, for sure. I equate it to sometimes it's like being a mushroom on a log out in the woods. I mean, because one of the things you lose, not only do you lose the camaraderie, but you also, you don't hear the day-to-day scuttlebutt of what's going on with, your supervisor, or, did you hear the latest rumor, where maybe we're getting sold, or so-and-so's retired. I mean, or we're bringing in this big book, you don't hear any of that when you work, or at least I don't, when you work remotely, because prior to all of y'all coming, home and working from home, prior to that, they didn't, because it wasn't a big thing. We were a small population. So there wasn't that effort or that emphasis to keep everybody in the loop. I think it's more so now during the pandemic, right? Because everybody's home. And certainly I think the thing I have missed the most working from home all these years is when I used to work in an office and I shared a cubicle wall with my best friend, who still is in that cubicle and is still my best friend. But we would bounce things off each other. It's like, hey, I'm not really sure. What do you think? And you learn a lot in an office because you're hearing your cubicle mates talk. Sometimes you're like, hey, that's interesting, or I have this claim. So there's really, and I know some people scoff at it, but it's absolutely true that there is an educational component that just happens through osmosis, almost from being in an office. And working remotely, I have found I am, and not so much anymore during the pandemic, but for the most part, I am a little hesitant to call my coworkers up because I don't know what they're doing at the moment, and I don't necessarily want to interrupt them. Whereas when I was in an office in my cubicle, I could hear if my next door neighbor was on the phone or not. And so I was like, oh, I can, she's not on the phone. She just hung up. I'm going to pop over my head over the cubicle and say, hey, I've got this. What do you think?
Yeah.
So it's certainly different. And there are some things that you lose working remotely.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, Nate and I have like when we were in the office, I would always go to his office and either shoot the breeze or shit or whatever. Yeah. But now I'll text him and be like, do you have a minute to talk? And usually it'll start with something real, something about a case or something like that. And then it turns into just catching up just because we don't have the privilege of being in the office with one another.
Yeah. The relationships certainly take more investment to maintain. And they suffer some from being remote, from not being in the same room.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, things just happen, I think, like organically in the office. There've been tons of times where it's not a problem I'm having in a case, but maybe Megan and another colleague are talking about something. And like you said, osmosis, you just hear it from around the corner. You're like, you know what? I have not seen that yet, but that's going to come up in one of my cases, I think. Or I saw that 4 years ago. Let me chime in and help. And it just kind of happens organically versus these pointed calls, all the time.
Which, so you lose that because I'm not in your office. I'm not around the corner. So I'm not hearing those conversations anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So now we have to get to the meat of this, because I think there's so many tips I think you can provide to us and to anyone listening about what you like or you don't like or you hate from counsel, or tips for other adjusters. One thing that popped out to me in one of your recent posts on LinkedIn is reporting and length of reports. And this is something Nate and I talked about actually in a podcast last week about the 28-page report.
I had a 53-page report. 53.
Were any
bring
problems
that
solved?
one to the beach reading.
I'm sorry, what?
I said, bring that to the beach, some beach reading. Just get your sun hat, open up a little.
Yeah. Here's the thing. 53 pages, and this was not. I handle all sorts of 7-8 figure claims, and this was a low 6-figure claim, not that complex. And in all the years that I have done this, I have never seen a report that long, not once. And it was over 50 pages. So I'm like, I have to read this. And I'm like, there is no way that this took that it needed to be 53 pages long. There just wasn't. And when I got that, and I'm thinking, are you kidding me? And my thoughts were, when I got done with it, is I'm not paying you for the amount of time you took to write me 53 pages under zero set of circumstances. And B, with 53 pages, when I got done, I should have been an expert on that claim. And even though it's my claim, but I should have known everything. I got done with it, and I thought, are you kidding me? I flipped it over to my supervisor. I said, hey, read this and tell me what you think. And she replied back 3 days later, because it's 53 pages, that she still wasn't super sure what was going on. I was like, exactly. At least if you're going to write 53 pages, I better really have a super, super good idea of what's going on at the end of that. But, I think the one I posted on, I'd asked for my attorney to be succinct and to focus on brevity. And I got 20 pages. And when I called him, it must have been obvious that I was a little unhappy, because he said, well, I'm sorry there was 20 pages, but I really pared it down. Oh my gosh, you pared that down. And a lot of those 20 pages was information, almost verbatim, that he had provided in prior reports. What are you doing, defense counsel? I've already seen this. You already wrote this to me. Please don't assume I'm an idiot. And if you have to refer to, just maybe put in there, please refer to report of 10/20/21 where we discussed this. Please don't put it back in there umpteen times ad nauseum, because I don't want to read what I've already read. And I also don't like when they see, look, I'm already venting.
That's good. This is great.
It aggravates me when they do a report, and it's, everything new is in blue font. So it's the same report from 2 months ago, only now it's even longer. And because they've inserted 10 paragraphs in blue font, stop it. I don't need that. I don't want it. If you've already reported on it, and then don't include it again. Just report what's new. So there, I could vent for hours.
Well, it's almost like a fundamental misunderstanding though of how your files are updated. Like if you had a previous report, that report is going to be in your file. Yes. And it's going to be in your notes. So yes, there's no need to regurgitate the prior information unless something has changed.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you reported previously on liability, and that you thought liability was doubtful, and in between your last report and your new report, if we've taken depositions of a witness that we didn't know about, and that changes the liability analysis, obviously we should discuss that in your report. And I don't have a problem at that point if you say, hey, per our 9/1/21 report, we had advised that liability was doubtful on the part of the insured because ABC. However, subsequently, we have now taken the deposition of witness John Blow, who says ABC. And so our opinion on liability or our analysis has changed. Mm-hmm. Brilliant. That's the information that I need. Mm-hmm. But yeah, please stop being so dang redundant. I know you guys are busy. I'm busy. I don't have time to read 50 pages. I don't have time to read and reread what you've sent me 3 times in the last 3 previous reports. And again, it aggravates me because I know you're billing me for it.
Right.
And that just chaps my hide. Don't put in fluff. How's that? Stop the fluff.
Let me ask you this question, because Megan and I had this podcast last week where we hypothesized as to why attorneys do that. So before we tell you our thoughts, why do you think attorneys add fluff, regurgitate facts and previous analysis, and write with such flowery language?
They get paid by the word. I don't know. Somebody, I forget where, I think it was on one of my LinkedIn rant about the length of the report. And somebody pointed out, the attorneys write those reports for themselves, in case a new attorney gets put on the case, so they can see what's going on and they'll know. And I'm like, no, that report is to me. You better be writing that report for me. And if the managing attorney on that file, it isn't up to date, then that's not my problem. That's a you problem. So I don't know. I mean, I would assume you guys are in a better position to tell me why attorneys write reports like that.
Megan, do you want to go, or we didn't reach a consensus, but we had some theories when we talked last week.
You can go with your theory.
So the 2 theories I had, and maybe I'm wrong, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. Obviously, I don't think you have a problem doing that. But the number one was it's all about covering your butt, right? Add everything all the time because you don't want to miss anything. That's number one. Number 2 is because law school exams you get a point per, at least in most of my law school exams, a point to notice the issue and a point to analyze it. So we were taught for years this is all the thing. I mean, if aliens came down, it's this. If Tyrannosaurus Rex are unearthed from the dead, it could be that. I mean, every potential thing that could happen, we try to cover. And number three, I think we're so pompous that we think we have such a command of the English language that who wouldn't want to read 50? I mean, Morgan, you're so lucky to have read 53 pages from an attorney, because why wouldn't
Yeah.
we? Because we have our diction is wonderful. And I think they're all bogus reasons. I'm just saying, I think that when we look internally, look in the mirror, that's probably why we do it.
I don't disagree necessarily. You know, I do want to talk about the CYA aspect of it. You know, we're on the same team, right? I'm not out here trying to look for opportunities to gig my defense attorneys. I've hired you because you're the expert. I'm not a defense attorney. So, maybe get a little more real. I don't need, break it down to, again, do the right thing. I want to pay what I owe, no more and no less. That doesn't change if it's in litigation or not. That's still the end goal for me. We're here to resolve claims appropriately per coverage. So just tell me what it is. I don't need to know reams and volumes of case law. I don't need to know every possible remote scenario that could happen. I need to know what it is and how we're going to navigate it, how we're going to resolve it. That's all I need to know. And if I need to know more, trust me, I'm going to pick up a phone and I'm going to call you. And I'm going to say, hey, guess what? I need more. Here's what I need. So yeah, it's endlessly frustrating. Clearly.
Sorry on behalf of all of us.
Well,
go to your room.
To follow up on that you also had a post, and I appreciated this, that you gave praise to one of your counsel for providing a report.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And I love and what you had said is, and I think I brought this up on our other podcast the other week too, because I thought it was great that he put up right up front.
Yes.
These are the two things I need two key points. And then I don't know what followed in the report, but was like up front, you could be like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, and that was, and I've never seen an attorney do that in all these years. And I was like, this is brilliant, because right up at the very top, it was 1 and 2. And I think it was a demand was made and they needed authority for something. And it wasn't an overly long report. It might've been, 5, 6, 7 pages, but it immediately, ding, ding in the brain. It's, hey, Morgan, be sure you pay attention to these 2 things when they come up in this report. So yeah, that was phenomenal. And, and if you want to write me, I mean, if it's legit 15 pages, because there's been a whole lot going on. Okay. I mean, I'm not saying it's not ever legit. So if it is legitimately that, at least do me the courtesy and make my job easier and do a 1 or 2 page, here's an executive, recap, or the claims for dummies recap of, here's the first 2 paragraphs, just dumb it down. And here's where we are, here's where we're going, here's what I need from you. And then in the rest of your pages, go through it all. And then when you get to the end of the report, maybe remind me again, so per the above, here are the things that I need from you. But yeah, the bullet points that he put up at the very top, it was opposite, it was above the Ray caption in bold. And again, I just thought that was the most brilliant thing I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. In fact, I sent him an email saying that was brilliant. I sent the managing partner an email saying that was brilliant. And I sent an email out to my coworkers saying, look what this attorney did. It was brilliant. And I sent it to the carrier. So yeah, I will say, as much as I vent or rant, I'm also, and I think more adjusters and more people in general need to do it, I also try to be very good about putting out praise and doing it in writing and pointing out when, hey, you did this and it really made my life easier. Thank you.
And everyone loves to get, well, feedback, but positive feedback is also encouraged,
Yeah, well,
or much appreciated.
Well, and here's the thing with that. So we all are pretty quick to put negative feedback in writing and run it, and send it to somebody's supervisor. And I think most people are good about giving positive feedback, but we rarely do it in writing. And if I call you up and say, hey, Megan, that was great. Thank you so much. You did a super good job. It makes you feel good, warm and fuzzy. It's awesome. But it doesn't do you any good when it comes down to, raise time or performance reviews, because you can't just call your boss and say, well, yeah, but Morgan said I'm awesome. But if I put it in writing and I include your boss, then it's in your personnel file.
Yeah. I will say on that point, I remember being a younger attorney, and the partner I worked for, once I did something good and she wrote to HR and copied me and was like, I want to say Megan did a great job on this case, blah, 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 and put this praise, and was like, please put it in her personnel file. And I was like, oh, that's so nice. And then I was like, what has she written that's negative that I was not copied on? And it just makes you think a little bit, like, because it didn't even occur to me that they were even doing that. And I was like,
right, that anybody's tracking that. Yeah. And I hate to break it to you, they're tracking that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing about reports I wanted to bring up quickly too is tone. And how, if you ever get off put by tone that's in reports, because I feel like sometimes maybe attorneys could talk down to adjusters, like their tone could be, I'm no more than you, and have that kind of feeling to it. I don't know if that's ever off-putting to you, or if you find it, or it's not.
Yeah, well, I have a really thick skin. I've got a mouth that I'm not afraid to use. And I don't have that happen to me often. And when I do, I immediately shut that down. I just won't tolerate that. I don't do that to other people. I'm not going to tolerate somebody doing that to me. And I think occasionally, we all know tone doesn't, body language, right? Body language is, what do they say, 90% or some ridiculous amount of communication. There's no body language in a report or an email. So I've learned over the years that instead of just immediately going for my big guns, when I feel like somebody's got that tone that I don't appreciate, I might flip them an email. Sometimes I'll call them and just say, hey, I'm not real sure what you're trying to say here, or how you're saying it. And, I think one time I had an attorney who was really, really clipped in all of his responses and all of his reports. I could barely ever get 4 words out of him in an email. I would email him something and, hey, what do you think? No, and finally I got so frustrated and so fed up with it. I called him and I said, look, gee, if you don't want to handle this claim for me, because that's what it feels like, I'm super happy to give it to somebody else. And he's like, oh, no. And so we had a conversation. And it turns out he's just, he's taciturn in his writing, and that's okay. But if I hadn't picked up the phone, I would not have known that. And I think, and me included, I think we all need to pick up a phone more often than we do when we get a report or an email that isn't what we thought it was, or a report that we're thinking the tone is wrong or something. We tend to escalate or internalize when we don't have to, if we would just pick up a phone. Yeah. So, I did that yesterday with the client. With an attorney who I was pretty aggravated with, because I kept not getting what I felt like I was very clearly asking for. So we ended up talking to one of the management partners about maybe moving him off. Mm-hmm. And in the interim, she had talked with him. And so we were able to determine, no, this is really just was a big miscommunication. Yeah. And not, with the attorney not understanding what I was looking for. So he's frustrated on his end because he's like, well, I gave her what she asked for. And I'm frustrated. I was frustrated on my end. So I'm like, I don't know how to be any more clear than I have been. And so it was a good lesson in, okay, pick up a phone, have a phone call. But yeah, and I will say there's one, and that'll be a tip this week is, and it was all about settlement value.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's so important that you and I are speaking the same language, and sometimes apparently we're not.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say, I need to know what settlement, but this is a case where we feel like we have no liability. It's a complete shakedown, extortion, to the tune, they're looking for millions, I think 14 million. We have no liability, right? And we're like, no. And so we're getting ready for court ordered mediation. And I'd asked my attorneys, hey, I need verdict values. And I want your settlement recommendations. And so I was getting these verdict values that were not on point at all. And I will admit, this is a super weird case, and there may not be verdict values that are on case or on point. So no tip for your defense attorneys, if there are none, please tell me that. Don't just send me some that are kind of that way and you don't say or admit they're not on point, because I'm going to read it and be like, and say to myself, okay, defense attorney, you're an idiot because these aren't on point. But the bigger problem was he was sending his settlement recommendation. And what I was looking for is for him to say, okay, we clearly have no liability, and I wouldn't recommend more than $5,000 or $10,000 nuisance value. What he thought I was looking for apparently was, what does he think, what he thought plaintiff is going to want to settle? And we're, I'm sitting in this position over here. I'm like, we're going to trial. It's going to be really costly, but we're going to spend $300,000 defending this versus give plaintiff $300,000 to go away. So it was just, and it was surprising to me to have this conversation. But it was just this reminder that sometimes we need to make sure that we understand what exactly is it that you're looking for. So, my tip for defense attorney is when an adjuster asks you that, maybe ask a few more questions to make sure that you're on the same page. And for adjusters is, and I will, going forward, I will now ask my attorneys, hey, what's your thoughts on liability? What do you think the plaintiff is looking for or will settle for? And what would you recommend we offer if we're willing to defend this? And so I'm going to have to make that more clear on my end, so I get the good data in, so I can get a good decision out, right? So yeah, it's just speak the same language, and apparently sometimes we're still not.
And as you said, it's okay to ask questions.
Absolutely.
I think you'd probably prefer your counsel be like, wait, Morgan, are you looking for this or this? Just let me know, so I get you the right information for you, so you can evaluate this on your end.
Yeah, without question.
I think sometimes attorneys are too concerned. If they come back with a question, it's going to seem like, well, we're unsure of ourselves. We don't know. We can't read your mind, so therefore you're not going to like us. I think there's that hesitation to ask a question that you might, the adjuster might somehow think we're, not adequate to handle this.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it goes back to, again, I look at this, I've hired you because you have an expertise that I don't. I certainly have an expertise that you don't. Mm-hmm. So, I need to know what it is. And if you're not sure what I'm looking for, what I'm asking, it's not going to hurt my feelings or upset me or make me think you're an idiot if you say, hey, I need a little bit of clarification. And honestly, that's how we develop a relationship, right? And a rapport. And the attorneys that I have worked with for years, they know me now because we've had those conversations. They've asked me those questions. I've told them my vents. I've told them this works for me. This doesn't work for me. But if you just want to be a one-off attorney and not continue to get my business and not continue to work with me, then yeah, sit there and don't ask questions and don't worry about it. But if we want to develop a relationship where we're going to continue to work together, it behooves both of us and our respective employers to ask those questions, right? Because we don't all work the same. We don't all think the same. So you're not going to know that, hey, Morgan keeps a 30-day diary on every single one of her claims. Honestly, most of them are a 2-week diary, but I reach out to my defense counsel every 30 days like clockwork. And hey, what's the current status? What's going on? The attorneys that I have worked with for years, they just keep my stuff on a 29-day diary.
Yeah.
Because they know I'm going to be hitting them up. So they just and they just send a quick email. Hey, Morgan, here's what's going on. And they can do that because they've asked the questions at the beginning of the relationship where it's, hey, and I now, I didn't used to, but now I let all my attorneys know. You're going to hear from me every 30 days. I want to know what's going on every 30 days.
Yeah.
And the good attorneys will say to me, okay, do you want a full report? Or can we just send you an email if there's not much going on? And send me it. Yeah, obviously, if there's not a lot going on, I don't need a report. I don't need 53 pages of crap that you've already sent me. Just send me an email. So yeah, it's conversations. It's developing that relationship. I'm not going to say I'll never think you're an idiot. If you call me up and you say, Morgan, I'm not really sure what a motion to dismiss is, then I'm going to say, clearly I have the wrong defense counsel, right? But for the most part, there is no stupid question. There is nothing that I'm going to think you're incompetent about. If you ask me something you've asked me 12 times already, I might think you're a little incompetent. Yeah. But again, for the most part, ask. I don't bite. And I don't think most adjusters bite, at least not immediately.
Give them time.
That relationship is so important because every company has reporting requirements that you have, so we do what's called litigation evaluation report, or a lit plan, we call it, within 45
absolutely.
days. And we have a form we use, and we've had some new clients, and I send that, and they say, well, actually, we prefer this form. These are the subsets we like and everything. But once you get past that, if you ask questions and you keep an open line of communication, it's so great to have a nice relationship with claims folks, because it's, and I'm at the point now, I'm sure Megan is too, where I call sometimes and say, hey, can I have authority to take this step? Here's why I want it. Here's what came to light. We just got these records. I want to move forward. P.S. I know your father was in the hospital. How's he doing? And then they can say, I hear your, and that's a wonderful thing. And it's not marketing. Absolutely. It's not disingenuous. It's purely, I've been on the phone with you for 60 hours now in my life, over 5 years. Like we're friends now, and we see each other.
I mean, when the pandemic first hit, and I'm in Arkansas, little Northwest Arkansas. I'd say 70 to 80% of my claims are along the Eastern Seaboard, down around, Florida, up all along the coast. They got hit quicker and first with COVID and all the shortages. And I was reaching out to my defense attorneys saying, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? And they're like, man, we can't get toilet paper. We can't get paper towels. There is no hand sanitizer to be found. We still had it here and quite a bit. So I was going all over town. I was shipping, literally, I shipped toilet paper, paper towels, hand sanitizer, Lysol to probably 6 different attorneys at 6 different firms.
That's a beautiful thing.
Well, awesome. Because they're my friends, because we have this relationship, and like what Nate said, we've developed it over years, and we've spent so much time on the phone that you develop a relationship, and that is never anything but good for my employer and my clients. That gets them a better product. I feel like when you have that personal relationship with somebody. Mm-hmm. You just get better work out of people.
Yeah, I agree too, because it's also like it's a level of comfort too, because you
Mhm.
understand what they want, you know
Yep.
exactly how to give it to them. Like you're not, it's easier for you to deliver when you feel
Yeah.
at
Well,
ease
you
with that
don't feel
other.
that pressure of having to impress somebody. I mean, it's not, oh, this is Morgan Dooley, senior claims adjuster over at network, and I better, I don't want to piss her off. I mean, it's Paul in Boston, who I've known for years and years and years and dearly love. And he is a personal friend now. Paul just, he'll pick up, oh my God, Morgan, you can't believe what's going on, and here's what we need to do. And there's no fluff. He doesn't have to impress me. I don't have to impress him. So we can have very frank conversations about what's going on, what needs to happen. He knows half the time what I'm going to say before I even say it, because he knows, my claim process thoughts. I know his thoughts. So yeah, it makes life so much easier. And I think, honestly, I think anymore now, when I have new defense attorneys, because I'm working a new book of business in some other states I haven't worked in recently. So whenever if I get a new attorney, I have a 15-minute conversation straight out the bat. So look, everything I have on my file, all of my files, 95% of them are diaried every 2 weeks. Here's how I handle my diary. If you send me an email, I will scan it quickly. If it's not urgent, I'm going to drop it in the file. I won't look at it again until it's up on diary. So you need to know if it is something that you're like, holy moly, Morgan, mark it high priority, because I'll immediately know that's you saying, holy moly, Morgan. I tell them, I'm going to reach out to you every 30 days. Possibly if it's a lot going on, it'll be sooner, but at a minimum, every 30 days. So you would be smart to set your diary for 29 days and send me something. I let them know, excuse me, I don't like to be ignored. If I send you an email, and if I send an email, I tell them I diary that file out 2 weeks, waiting for a response from you, unless it's something crazy urgent. If 2 weeks go by and my diary pops back up and I don't have a response from you, I'm a little annoyed. Yeah. And so then I send you another email and I diary it for 1 week. And God help you if a week from now goes by and I get back in that file and I don't have a response from you. Because at that point, I'm pretty hot. And I tell them, I get it. If you're in trial, you've got depots, your cat died, your mother's in the hospital. I get it. Life happens. Send me an email. Morgan, cat's in the hospital, and the dog died. And I will say, cool. Okay. So I'm going to diary that, unless it's something crazy that I really need a response to, but at least then I know, and I can document my file. I can keep my supervisor off my rear end. And I can keep auditors off both of our rear ends. But if you don't tell me, I don't know. So I tell them that. I tell them in this introductory, call, before we even get to the case, here are my pet peeves. Don't send me emails without my claim number in it. If all of my stuff is with one carrier, and they have very specific guidelines, as they all do. And one of them is don't submit your billing except once every quarter, or when it's over a set amount of dollars. So I tell them, I pay attention to that. Don't, follow that rule, because if you don't, it's going to irritate me. I tell them, most of them now, I tell them the horror story of the 53-page report. Yeah. Don't send me 53-page report. I definitely tell them now, and I didn't used to, because I didn't think I had to, but apparently I do. If you're going to recommend that I offer $50,000 or more, you better pick up a phone first and call me before you put that in writing. So it's and it's these things that aggravate me. I mean, obviously, I know what my pet peeves are. Everybody's pet peeves are different. And I think I learned part of that lesson when same client years ago, when I first started working for him, I came in on the book with a different employer than who I'm with now. And the client was pretty unhappy with what was going on their claims. So I just called him. I mean, he's way up the food chain. I just called him. I said, hey, Joe Blow, what are the 3 biggest pet peeves you have on this right now that would make your life easier? And he fired them off. 1, 2, 3. And those became my Bible. And I still make sure 1, 2, 3. I don't report to him anymore. He's not over what I do. But I still make sure that we always are doing or we're not doing those 1, 2, 3 pet peeves. So, maybe the takeaway is adjusters, let them know what your pet peeves are. What are your top 3, 5 things that are going to make your life easier? And the flip of that, ask your defense attorney, what are the 3 or 5 things I can do to make your life easier? Because again, if I'm making your life easier and you're making my life easier, the claim is going easier and we get a better resolution sooner for our respective client.
And it's also just understanding each other's own, like the diary system is a perfect example. Like if I'm working for you and I know like Morgan is not going to see this for 2 weeks and I know how to get your attention, that's a lot better than me being like, why isn't she responding to me? I really need to know if we have authority to go forward those steps or retain that expert. Like, my God, why isn't she like, it's, if you know each other's systems and you know how each other work, it's going to go a lot smoother.
Yep. Yeah. And and you won't be as frustrated. I won't be as frustrated. And frankly, anytime I can, ratchet down my frustration level, my husband is a happy man.
I think that's an excellent plan, because I think especially when you work for a new adjuster or as an adjuster, when you work with a new attorney, you do all this stuff over email. It's all kind of this diplomatic language, right? It's all like ambiguous language. If you pick up the phone and say, I don't like this, I do like this, it would solve so many problems. It's like setting ground rules at the beginning of any relationship, right? Like, this is why I like you don't like anything. That's invaluable. Yeah, that's absolutely invaluable. Yeah.
And I just, and frankly, I've done this so long and I'm so busy now and I'm so old and set in my ways. I just don't have time to mess with that. And I'm just like, look, I can put 10 or 15 minutes in on the front end and have this phone call, and life is so much easier. So yeah, I just, I don't have the tact or the diplomacy anymore to try and, dance around it and not just, it is what it is. And I'm just going to tell you, and honestly, I may not be everybody's cup of tea. As far as defense attorneys go, there are some defense attorneys, personality wise, I just don't mesh with. And that's okay too. And maybe sometimes in having that conversation, we learn that, okay, this might not be a great relationship. Maybe we need to have a different relationship, or, I assume there are, well, I know there are, I have defense firms, my Florida firm, they're huge. And there are attorneys there that I don't get along. Their personality doesn't fit mine. And I have actually called the managing partner there and said, hey, Dan, not a fan. We're not gelling. It's not they're doing anything wrong, but I need somebody else. And because Dan and I have the relationship that we do now, I don't run into that problem very, very, very rarely on stuff I assign to his firm, because he knows my personality. He knows how I approach claims. And he knows, frankly, everybody that knows me, we all know I'm a pit bull. So don't put me with a poodle. Right. And I mean, but really though, that just makes sense. If you develop that relationship and you start right out the gate telling them, look, I'm a pit bull. I mean, it's one of the things I tell new defense attorneys. I'm super aggressive in how I approach my claims. I tell them, pay what you owe, no more, no less. I'm super aggressive. I hate open files that sit around for thousands of years. I also don't appreciate it when you don't have a game plan. I'm not a believer in litigating to litigate. There has to be an exit strategy. And I let them know I'm still driving the bus. Yes, you're the defense attorney. It's my claim. I'm still in charge. And I tell them that because I also know that there are adjusters who it goes into litigation. Great. Here you go, defense attorney. Let me know when to write the check. Right. And I'm not saying I am saying that's bad because it is. But I know there are but that's just not me. I don't do that. I'm driving the bus. I'm going to be really active. I'm going to get in your face if I think I need to get in your face. So yeah, it's just have the conversation at the very get-go, save everybody aggravation, time, frustration, just have that conversation.
I think that's a great point because there are some, like you said, there's some adjusters who, they're like, fine, like counsel, we pay you to be our attorney and tell us what to do. And that's your job. And then there's others who feel how you do. And I think it's more the majority that feel how you do that. Like, look, I'm still driving the bus. So. This is, and also that this is a joint process though. Like we need to work together, but I do have the ultimate say, but I also want you to not be wishy-washy. I want you to make
and I think that's probably one of every adjuster who handles litigation. I think that's probably a very, very common pet peeve is when you're super bullish about liability until you get to the courthouse steps. And then I'm like, no, we're not doing this. So yeah, that's super, super frustrating.
So we are about out of time, and I'm upset because I have so many other things I want to talk to you about. So we might need to have you on again.
Too much. I'm sorry.
No, I'm upset just because I have all these like things I wanted to pick your brain on. So I think we need to have a part 2, if you're willing. But sure. I don't want to close without, after having all your years of experience in managing outside counsel, do you have any advice for that younger, newly minted adjuster at how they can feel confident and really like pull their counsel in and have the reins in their control?
That's a tough one, Megan.
I end with a tough one.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think I would probably start with one of the things that I think has served me well in my career is never be afraid to ask a question. If you don't know, you don't know. And you're not just going to magically know. And it's okay to be new. We all started out, right? So, I started out not knowing anything. I think I would recommend finding a mentor. And I guess I would just start with, if I was brand new, having a conversation with a defense attorney, I think I would just tell them, look, I'm new to this, because they're going to know, right? You can't fake that. They're going to know you're new. I know when I get a new associate, they're going to know that. So just admit it straight off and just tell them, I'm new to this, but I need you to know I'm still going to be driving the bus, and I'm going to need you to, you're going to have to help me some. But I want to make sure that we get off on the right foot, that I'm still driving the bus because this claim is in my name, which means the ultimate responsibility for it rests with me. And so I think I would just, I guess I would just have that conversation with defense counsel and not try to BS your way through it, because they're going to see through that. They're not going to respect you for that. And I think I like to think my attorneys respect me because I am forthright with them, and I'm honest with them, and I'm not afraid to question them. I'm not afraid to disagree with them, and I'm not afraid to ask them for help or ask them questions. So I guess that would be my advice.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice. And I think it's like the same thing with being a young attorney. Like if you're a young associate, it's, I think when you have a new relationship with the adjuster, I think it's okay to be like, admit that you don't know everything, but not act like you do.
I think it's okay to admit you don't know everything. I mean, I know a lot, and my friends and family will tell you, boy, Morgan, she really is pretty sure she knows everything, but I don't. I don't know everything. So I don't mind I don't ever think less of somebody if they say, hey, I don't understand this. I don't know this. I haven't run into this before. Frankly, I respect that, because it does take a bit of gumption or something to be able to say to somebody, I don't know this. I'm not sure. I need some help.
Well, and that's what I think is the caveat. Like, if you're going to admit, you have to be like, but I'm going to work it out and figure it out. I'm going to put in the work and the time to figure it out. Not just I don't know this. Sorry.
That's obnoxious, and that's not good. But it's okay, to not know. And again, part of that goes to, I've hired you because I don't know everything, right? I'm not an attorney, so I don't know. There's lots of things I don't know. So it's okay to ask.
Yeah. Well, Morgan, thank you so much for coming on. I cannot say how much I appreciated all your insight and input. And
I appreciate you asking. It was fun.
And I do sincerely hope that you can come on and do a part 2, because I have things about experts and costs and valuation. Yes, I have so much stuff on my notes here.
Because we have to tell the story. And we do have to do a part 2, because I have to have the story about the time my defense attorney recommended an expert I think that's one of my tips.
Yeah, don't give it away. Because I
won't give it away, but we have to do the part 2.
Yeah. So foreshadowing, guys, listening.
Foreshadowing. It's always good.
I have some questions about experts. It's like about the number of experts recommended, and
I have some more stories about experts.
What a trailer! This is like a trailer for part 2 of a movie. It's like
stay tuned.
Exactly. Yeah.
We left everyone on a cliffhanger.
It's terrible.